Okay, and thank you everybody for clicking whatever button Zoom just asked you to click. And now I will send it over to Mariella for our meditation today. Thank you so much, Mariella. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here, as most of you already did. If you want to turn your camera off, allow yourself to do that, whatever makes you feel safe and comfortable in this moment. We're going to practice for about 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. So if you like to find a position that is comfortable, that is relaxed, that is alert, but if today you need to lay down, allow yourself to do that. This is a moment to offer some gentle, loving space for yourself. I'll ring the bell at the beginning and at the end of practice. If you wish, you can use the sound of the bell as an invitation to bring all of your attention to this moment. And perhaps you may want to start by taking a couple of deeper breaths. Taking a deeper inhale through the nose and inviting the body to soften. And taking a deeper exhale, releasing any tension that you're aware is present in the body. And gently bringing all of the attention to this moment, to the body being right where you are. And take a moment to orient yourself in the space you're in. Notice surrounding sounds that are around you. Notice the smells. Notice and feel the temperature of the space you're in. In this way, we use the senses to bring us into the present moment. And moving your attention to notice sensations in the body and feeling the different points of contact of the body with the chair, or the cushion, or the sofa. Whatever object you are sitting or laying down on. And notice sensations in the back, in the sit bones area. Notice sensations in the legs and the feet. And feeling the contact of the feet with the ground. And also taking a moment to acknowledge the earth underneath the feet, underneath the object holding you. this earth that is holding all of us in different parts of the planet. And coming back to the senses. For the next few moments, just simply be here, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just notice what is it like to be alive in this body right now. Remember to always bring a sense of curiosity. Keep a curious mind and attention, feeling what's it like to inhabit this body right now. An attention that is kind and non-judgmental. Just being present with what's here, sensations, thoughts, emotions. And to the best of your abilities, just being present with everything that is here. Not wishing it to be any different than what it is. And as you are here observing, feeling the body, see if you can feel the breath in the body. And just bringing your attention to whichever part of the body it's the easiest for you to feel the breath. And with a curious attention, just be present with the different sensations of the breath in the body. And really dropping the attention in the felt sense, not thinking about the breath, but really feeling the breath moment by moment. See if you can feel the aliveness of this body with each breath, the aliveness of this moment. Without needing to change the breath, just being here, present with the natural rhythm of the breath. Feeling the inhale, the exhale. Maybe notice the space in between the inhale and the exhale. Notice if there is any space between the inhale and the exhale. And it's very normal that the mind will drift away and it will get carried away with a story, with an image or sound if that's not your anchor. That's very normal. The invitation is to notice when the mind drifts away and to bring it back to this moment, bring it back to the anchor. And as the body continues to breathe, moving your attention now to noticing other sensations in the body. You may notice sensations that are pleasant. There are others that are unpleasant. And there are also others that are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. They're more like neutral, just there. So whatever you notice, if you can not attach to the sensation or resist the sensation, see if you can just let it be here. Let it come and pass by. Noticing the change in nature of the sensation. Noticing impermanence, is that we're feeling that is present. is also impermanent in nature, it changes. And now opening your awareness to include thoughts. And also noticing how they arise and they pass by. And there's nothing wrong with any of the sensations, with any of the thoughts that come. And to the best of your abilities, not going into the narrative of the thoughts, just noticing the activity of the mind, thinking. The mind secretes thoughts just like the mouth secretes saliva. So they're not personal. In this practice, we are increasing our capacity to hold space for that arises, the thoughts, the sensations, the emotions, and welcoming them in a loving space. So holding space for everything that is here present in this moment. With a curious, loving, compassionate, and understanding attention. And for a moment, bring all of your attention to the heart space. And if you wish, you can place one or two hands in the heart space. Feel what it feels in this moment. Notice the different emotions present right now without needing to get rid of them or change them, just as a way of knowing what's here. And as your attention is in the heart space, asking yourself, what do I need to hear right now that will feel supportive? And that may be a word or a phrase or a couple of phrases. And just notice what arises. A phrase or a word in a way to offer compassion to yourself. And I'd like to invite you to offer that to yourself. That might be something like, I love you. I'm here for you. You're doing your best, whatever that is. Just offer some compassion to yourself, some words of support. Notice how it feels to receive support in this way. And know that this is available to you whenever you decide to access it, offering support, compassion in this way. It's within you. As we get to the close to the ending time of our practice, I'd like to invite you to end with bringing attention to gratitude. Find something that you can be grateful for in this moment. And that could be a part of the body, a person, an object, an event, a pet, whatever that is. And notice how gratitude is felt in the body. And I'd like to invite you to also take a moment and find gratitude for yourself, for having made the time to be here and to be with you in this way. You could have been doing something completely different, but you chose to be here. In a world full of distractions, to be with oneself in this way, it feels like an act of radical love, radical acceptance for oneself, even a heroic act. Because a lot of the times it's easier not to be with oneself. So honor that. After I ring the bell, I invite you to see if you can continue cultivating this quality of attention and bring it to the rest of your day. So the practice doesn't end here. The practice continues as you move through the rest of your day. And you continue bringing a quality of attention that is kind, that is curious, that is non-judgmental. And gently coming back to the screen. Thank you all for practicing together, for being here. Pass it on now to wonderful Brian and for our wonderful talk with Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for practicing together.
Well, thanks, Mariella, so much for leading us in our sit today, and thank you for everything, as always. And wonderful, everybody. So this is a practice group. We just practiced, and so glad that we get to do that. So now moving from our practice time over to our teaching time, our Dharma talk today. And here is the wonderful Patrick. And Patrick and I met. I'll very briefly just tell you, Patrick and I met Oh, a whole bunch of years ago at the Didi Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center in Los Angeles. Really grateful. Learned a lot from you, man. It's also nice to make new friendships in adulthood. So I'm so glad that we're friends. Patrick is just a phenomenal counselor and then supervisor. So Patrick takes care of the counselors at the Suicide Prevention Crisis Hotline, and he's very, very good at what he does. Patrick is also a senior Dharma teacher in the Zen tradition. I sat over 100 silent meditation retreats. Patrick is also a gifted and accomplished musician, husband, father, and he is a human being. Patrick, you're a human being also. Don't forget about that. Yeah, I know. So over to Patrick today. Thank you, Patrick, for offering your words and your experience and experience, strength, and hope. Thanks for sharing about grief and love and loss. I really am so glad that you're here. So without further ado, over to you, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Um, so grief, uh, something that is very real to me right now. Is I lost my mom January 1st. Um, and you know, even when someone is sick, even when you know that it's coming, it's still unexpected. You know. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But grief in general is something that is, whether you have lost someone close to you yet or not, you will. Um, but if you have not, that doesn't mean you still don't know grief. Grief is a universal experience. Oh yeah, because this life and everything in it is impermanent. And some of you have been coming before. Maybe you remember there's a talk I gave about suffering, and kind of talked about the different kinds of suffering. Um, and so there's the suffering of suffering, right? And this is like the suffering of, you know, old age, sickness, death, that we all experience. There's that kind of like all pervasive sort of undercurrent of just sort of discomfort of you can't really quite put your finger on it, but things just aren't quite right, you know. Then grief is a big part of this experience. And the thing about grief is not an emotion, it's not a feeling, it's not a thought. It's an ongoing process. It's something that is continually unfolding, and it it depends greatly on how we react, how we work with those things that come up, those feelings that do come up, those emotions, those thoughts. So with my mom, she'd been sick, with cancer for a couple of years. Um, and then, she was doing okay, but there's always like complications. There's always things sort of coming up, you know. Um, and I guess like the 20th, she was going for chemo, and they do blood tests before chemo. And so they said, you need to go to the emergency room because you're in liver failure. We can't do chemo, you know. So you need to go to the ER. So we went to the ER, and we were admitted to the hospital. And it's a strange time to be in the hospital because there's no one there. It's right before the holidays, and so we were there for days while she just kind of, slowly kind of getting worse. And no one really, no one really told us like, hey, you know, this is it. You should act accordingly. You should make arrangements. You should ask questions you need to ask. You should do what you need to do. You know, and that's often the case. No one ever says, "Hey, this is it," right? Um, and she was in a lot of discomfort. She had a lot of fluid built up in her abdomen. So they, for her comfort, said, "Okay, well, we'll do this. This paracentesis, which is where they kind of drain the fluid from the abdomen. So that you're more comfortable." And so she went down to do that. And they put her under general anesthetic and stuff. And she never came back. She didn't die then, you know, but she never regained consciousness, right? No, no one told us that was the thing. So I bring this up because somewhere in our heads, I think a lot of us, when we think about death, when we think about our life, we think that we'll have some measure of maybe control over the situation, that we'll be at a place of acceptance, right? That we'll be able to arrange our affairs and things like this. So watching my mom, you she still was alive. She was, uh, for probably 4 days, 4 days, 5 days after that, you know. But at no point in time was she able to convey, I'm uncomfortable. I need more pain meds, or the pain medicine is too much. You know, it's making me foggy. It's making me this. At no time was she able to say, I thought this was what I wanted after I pass away, but really these are my wishes. Right. So I bring this up, everybody, and I know it's a sobering subject, right? But at the time of our death, you know, all the arrangements, all the like whatever preparation we can make, you know, nothing can help us except our practice at that point. Okay. And our practice is just being with what comes up, not engaging the story about it, not creating me and this experience, and me, this and that, self and other, but just being with it. What is this? Who is experiencing? Don't know. Coming back to that again and again and again. So, when we lose things, whether that is a loved one, whether that is a place of security, whether that is a job, sense of self, uh, you know, the city used to be this way and now it's this way, all of these things. So we're grieving all of the time. Thomas, you mentioned, like, I feel like I've been grieving my whole life. Not as accurate. That's accurate for all of us. You know, I what we are grieving, it's different for everyone. But the reason grief gets complicated is because it is a process, and there's never a point when, you know, okay, I'm done, right? Okay, I've gotten through that now, right? You know, and maybe when we're grieving one thing, you know, subtly, maybe to a lesser degree, we're also grieving other things, right? So uh, after she passed, we've got to deal with my mom's her house, you know, stuff. There's all these kind of practical concerns, right? And, so we've been emptying it out and watching this space, which was a space of like comfort, a space of like connection, just become a space, you know. So there's this sense of loss there, you know. So it's always like grief on top of grief on top of grief while we're alive, you know. And that sounds really depressing and morbid, but that's not, you know. This is just part of being a human. But it's what we do with these experiences when they come up, you know. I lost my dad when I was younger, when I was about 21. And my experience after losing him and losing my mom has been very different. Um, and that has been, I think, primarily due to, you know, I didn't have a practice when my dad died. I didn't, I hadn't sat with these questions. I hadn't sat with these things very much, at all. Um, so, during this process, like it's been, a word that comes up a lot is confusing, right? And surprising things that come up. Anger, like anger toward my mom, right? Anger toward other members of my family, just irritation, faceless, nameless, ambiguous irritation, right? Of course, like sadness, you know, at times, happiness, right? But the thing that really, really gets us when we grieve is the checking of everything that comes up, the judging that we do of ourselves and what we're experiencing. You know, I shouldn't be feeling so angry. I'm a piece of shit for feeling angry at my mom, right? Because like she's passed away and I'm a terrible son. I'm feeling this way, right? These kinds of stories, this kind of judgment that we put on what comes up, right? And that's what kind of like makes us react in different ways and push these things away and kind of makes us not want to look at them, right? And as we've talked about before, when we kind of push those painful experiences away, it doesn't mean they're not there, right? It just means we're not very aware of them, but we're still reacting to them, you know. And this is where we get into our more kind of neurotic patterns in life, you know, because we're still trying to get out of this emotion. So like I need some comfort. I need, maybe this or that or this or that, you know, or we lash out in different ways. We're not sure why, all these kinds of reactions. Um, and that's one of the hardest things. I mean, during meditation, it's the same, right? These stories come up, something that I hear a lot from just everyone really, but it's something that we talk a lot about in this group is that negative self-talk, right? Those like thoughts that we kind of direct at ourselves, you know. Um, and that's a that's kind of like exaggerated in a big way I feel like when we're grieving a lot of times for many people, and it has been for me too. It's something that I notice and um, constantly just have to kind of like pull back from. When I notice that I'm doing it, it's just like when we practice, right? You notice it, oh, it's just a story. It's a story about the wave, right? The wave comes up. If we don't create the story about it, the wave just passes on its own, you know. But what we do is we make that story, right? And then that story brings up more waves, and we create a story about those, and it's more waves and more waves, and before we know it, you know, it's just we're just overwhelmed. Um, so this process of going through this has really been one of just like again, coming back. What is this? Don't know. There's a uh, the Zen Center where I practiced in LA for years and years. On the mantle, there's just these words, and it says, at all times, whether sitting, sleeping, lying down, standing, or moving, what is this? Don't know. So whatever experience comes up, who is experiencing that? Don't know. And when we can kind of let go of that story, you know, then that experience of sadness, an experience of anger, that experience of whatever it is coming up, right? It's just that. It's not bad, it's not good, you know. Um, I do think, you know, the sadness of losing those that we love, you know, one of the hardest things is like, kind of feels like there's this hole, right, left behind, when we lose those people who are really like, kind of the North Star in our world, right? Where that our world kind of revolves around, you know, and then we're left feeling very like directionless and you know, without a clear path forward. And that's an extremely difficult experience to go through. And that's also an experience of love, you know, as much as it doesn't feel like that, as much as it, is painful. When we think about what that person was to us, you know, it's an experience of love. When I think of my mom, um, and we had our things, but you know, she always she always just like put us first, you know. Um, when I was growing up, when I was young, like 8 years old, my dad went in to have surgery on his sinuses, and the doctor got lost in there and cut into his brain. And so he didn't, he almost died many times. But he didn't know who we were. He didn't. Um, he was just very confused. He was kind of crazy, you know. And I remember going to see him in the hospital, and my mom was like, "This is Patrick. This is your son." And he was like, "Okay, well, you have to be quiet because you don't want to wake the baby." You know, like he was just like didn't know why he was there, didn't know where he was, just and this lasted for years, and then when he finally sort of came out of it, he was just a very different person, and our relationship was very different. Um, and for whatever reason, like I was a great source of irritation to him, you know. And through all of that, like I don't know how my mom held it together throughout that, grieving the loss of like the lover of her life, right? And then like having to learn to, you know, be with this new person because he was a new person, you know. while still sort of grieving the loss of who he was, holding it together for us, and all these things. And so even the times where I feel like we butted heads, it was all about us, you know. Um, and that's something that I go back to, and as much as I miss just being able to see my mom, you know, um, I just feel so grateful, you know. And I have a sense of just kind of wanting to, honor that love, you know, um, and pass it on. And I think about what keeps me from being loving and compassionate in the world, right? What keeps me from loving and being compassionate with a complete stranger the way I would with a son, a wife, you know. And then what what it is I, me, my, mine, you know, other, right? And this is really a dream. That's a dream. Um, and I know that that can be really, really, really difficult to wrap your head around, and we try to understand it conceptually, and that's okay. That's not wrong, you know. But really, where we find that is when we are willing and able to just put it all down. I think times ago, I don't know if it was last time or the other time, kind of just did like a short meditation with you guys about like, sensations, right? And I had you sort of pinch your arm here, your hand a little bit, right? And you feel that sensation, right? And you have the story of, my hand, pinch, ouch, pain, whatever, right? But when you drop away these stories, and you let go of these stories and just be with the sensation as it is, and then you look for who is experiencing that sensation. If you're able to really go there, that is love. Zen Master Sun, someone said one to him, someone asked him one time, they said, "What is love?" And he says, "You ask me, what is love? I ask you, what is love? This is love." It took me a really long time to really understand that teaching. You know, some days I still don't understand it, right? Because I'm just like everybody else, right? I get pulled into these stories. I get pulled into all these kind of things again and again, right? And then just coming back. What is love? So there's no clear answers here, guys. When it comes to grief, when it comes to just all of this, you know, it's really just about being present with the experience of whatever comes up, not making yourself separate from that experience. When we talk about duality, it's often framed as in like self and other, inside, outside. Um, you know, I am this, you are that, right? But the real duality, I mean, that all is duality. That all is like a dream too. But really, where we experience this most acutely is the things that we experience. right? And the separation that we put between that experience. And we do that by this, my experience. I am feeling this. I don't like this. I don't like this experience. I want it to be this. Okay. Matthew, you mentioned earlier, like in your practice was kind of unsatisfactory lately, right? And our practice is just like our life, you know. So whatever comes up, right? It's okay. Just don't judge. All right. Our ego, our I, my, me mind, you know, this mind wants to have something good, wants a good practice, wants a good feeling, wants a perfect, this and that, whatever, right? But this is what keeps us turning in that wheel of suffering. So whatever comes up, okay? If you have a clear practice, you have a clear meditation, wonderful. And if your mind is just shit and it's just you're being bombarded by thoughts after thought after thought, sensations coming up, feelings coming up, that's okay too. Just as best you can, you be with those. And when you notice that you're contributing to that story, that's perpetuating them, I don't like this. I wish this would go away. I don't like this feeling. I just want to be happy. Just want to be okay. Right? Okay. That's what keeps us in that wheel of suffering. Okay. That, and it seems counterintuitive. It seems very natural to not want something that hurts, right? And to want to push that away and want something good. But really, this experience, however painful it is, and there's been a lot of this for me lately, right? And so this is something that I've been coming back to again and again. I get hooked by it, but then it's just kind of, you just let it go. And that experience becomes, the edges blur a little bit, right? Becomes less solid and it passes. And this is what really is always coming up, right? It's just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, okay? On the screen of our awareness. That screen is not encumbered, it is not tarnished, it is not sullied in any way by what passes before that screen. You know, it is emptiness, complete emptiness. And at once it's also luminous. It illuminates everything. And that is your true nature. You know. So more than anything, I know this talk maybe it's disappointing. There's no answers here. You know, what I would want for all of you more than anything is to just really sit with that question. What is this? What am I? And just let it be, you know, because this life is extremely short and we don't know when it will end. We think we'll be prepared, but we won't. So all we can do is really, really just practice with this question. What am I? Don't know. Um, let's open it up for some questions.